the results of Hurricane Irene, a natural disaster that has many Americans in deep distress tonight. The floods are devastating from North Carolina to Vermont, Virginia to upstate New York. Roads impassable, houses underwater, livelihoods washed away. In many places, the hurricane dropped rain for 2 days straight into earth that was already saturated. The results are fearsome to behold. Here's ABC's Dan Harris.
Hurricane Irene may have finally disintegrated and left the scene, but she has still left her mark.
Here it comes.
In Vermont, of all places, she was unexpectedly devastating. They haven't seen floods like this in over half a century. The water's tearing through homes and bringing down those old historical bridges.
Oh my God!
The floodwaters even got into local fire departments here.
The water level got right here.
In some areas here in the Catskill Mountains of New York, flooding was truly out of control.
It's starting to come up high on the porch. Things are really bad.
And then there's the Philadelphia, New Jersey area where I spent the last 24 hours. A creek that runs right through the middle of town jumped its banks, overran these railroad tracks, and then look at this, created this waterfall right into these two cars. This, by the way, is an auto repair shop that is taking some serious damage. And then the water runs right down this residential neighborhood. And the most serious damage it did is to this house right there. It undermined the foundation. The whole side of the house collapsed. You can see right inside of it. Late today, I was in Little Falls, New Jersey, going boating with Joe Crocco through his neighborhood. We intended to row ourselves, but the currents were so strong we had to take turns getting out and pulling the thing. The Passaic River, which runs right through Joe's neighborhood, is going to crest at 5 in the morning at a record level. Nobody knows how bad it's going to get here. Joe, have you ever seen it like this before?
No, this is the worst.
There's no question Irene is making life hellish for Joe here and for so many other people. But for most of the 60 million plus people in Irene's path, she wasn't really much more than a big rainstorm. A lot of water, yes, but so much more was anticipated. Her arrival days out was greeted with so much fear and also heralded with an enormous amount of what a lot of people have called hype and hyperbole.
This could be the worst hurricane to hit the Northeast in decades.
And this is where it gets very scary.
This looks like a potential for the hurricane of our lifetimes.
State and city officials up and down the East Coast prepared for the worst.
I cannot urge people strongly enough. Maybe I can. Stay inside.
The mayor of New York, Michael Bloomberg, took some extreme steps, ordering mandatory evacuations and, for the first time ever, shutting down the largest subway system on Earth.
This is a very dangerous storm.
The reason he did all of that, of course, was because the forecast was so dire. In the days before the storm, I was doing stories where experts were telling me that the Manhattan skyscraper windows could be blown out.
You start to squeeze wind in between the skyscraper, it goes faster, and it sucks the windows over.
And on Saturday morning, as the storm was bearing down on the Northeast, I interviewed the head of the National Hurricane Center live on Good Morning America. I want to put a fine point on this. If anybody is watching this and tempted to not take it so seriously because it's been downgraded, what would you say to those people?
Prepare to stay indoors, ride the storm out. Hope you've got your food and water in place.
And early the next morning, as I reported for duty in New York's Times Square, the crossroads of the world was on lockdown. You know, for the 24-hour McDonald's, only in Manhattan do they have 24-hour McDonald's. Normally, these doors, all of them are open. They never really shut them because people are coming here at all hours. Today, nobody. But as the morning played out on live television, it became pretty obvious that the storm was not going to be so bad. At this point, it mostly feels like a rain event at this point, as opposed to a powerful wind hurricane. And so today, there is a whole lot of armchair quarterbacking going on. The forecasters did get the path of the storm right, but they were, they admit, wrong about the storm's strength.
If you don't get the wind and the track right, you're not going to get the storm surge right, and therefore, you'll likely always have some over-evacuations.
All of this has also put people like the mayor of New York on the defensive.
We can't just, when a hurricane's coming, get out of the way and hope for the best. That's not responsible.
Though New York City and the other major cities in the Northeast were largely spared, there's no question that Irene did land some real punches. At least 38 people died, And then there's the economic impact. When it's all said and done, the total damages could be up to $45 billion. And beneath those numbers, the undeniable human impact. Remember that house I showed you where the whole side had simply collapsed? While I was there today, the family who lived there showed up.
This is my bed, the second floor.
Turns out they had no flood insurance at all.
My house for 22 years and now.
Irene may have been less powerful than originally feared, but for this family and for many others, she will never be forgotten. This is Dan Harris for Nightline in Trenton, New Jersey.